We live in an era of unprecedented connectivity, where we are available to the world 24 hours a day, yet we spend our nights shrinking into the smallest possible versions of ourselves. Statistically, over 40% of adults retreat into the fetal position every single night, a posture that social psychologists increasingly view not as a mere habit, but as a silent, nonverbal protest against the relentless transparency of modern life. Think back for a moment to when you were 5. Sleep was a sprawling, reckless event. You'd wake up sideways, limbs flung wide, claiming every inch of the mattress, because the world felt safe enough to be occupied. But then adulthood arrived with its quiet requirements. Now you find yourself tucked tight, knees drawn to chest, chin tucked in. It's the core paradox of the wounded soul. The very perimeter you've built to survive the day, that high-functioning, I've got this exterior, has become so heavy that by 11 p.m., your only relief is to collapse into the shape of a seed. You aren't just sleeping, you are retreating into a biological bunker, shielding your vital organs from the perceived threats of a day that has already ended. To understand this, we have to look past the surface and into the mechanics of regression in service of the ego. This isn't immaturity, it's a sophisticated psychological reboot. When the world feels predatory, the psyche demands a return to a time before you were a manager, a partner, or a disappointment. Then there is the ventral vagal freeze. For many who sleep this way, the nervous system has been rewired by years of high-stakes environments. Your brain doesn't realize the office lights are off or that the danger is just a pending email. It remains in a state of hyperarousal, leaving you with a low humming radar in your chest that refuses to power down. Curling into a ball is a mechanical attempt to force close the apps of the mind by physically guarding the front side of your body, where your most vulnerable nerves reside. Philosophically, we might call this the burden of personhood. In the fetal position, you lose your face, your hands, and your identity. You become an anonymous curve of spine. Let's be honest for a second. It feels like trying to fold a map back perfectly after a long, exhausting trip, doesn't it? Imagine your soul is an old grand theater. During the day, the lights are blinding, the actors are screaming their lines, and the audience is demanding an encore you don't have the energy to give. The fetal position is that moment after the curtains close, when you finally turn off the chandeliers, lock the heavy front doors, and sit alone in the dark, tiny wings of the stage. It is the only place where the performance finally, mercifully, stops. You are not small because you are weak. You are small because you have spent the last 16 hours trying to be far too big. This reluctant fortress doesn't just stay in the bedroom. It casts a shadow over your relationships. When you spend your nights in a biological bunker, it becomes difficult to lower the drawbridge during the day. We wonder why we feel emotionally distant, forgetting that our bodies have spent 8 hours practicing self-containment. If your primary mode of safety is exclusion, then inclusion starts to feel like an invasion. You aren't being cold, you're just still wearing your armor. So, how do we begin to unfurl? It starts with the radical realization that the war is over. The unfurling isn't just about changing your posture, it's about convincing your nervous system that the theater is safe, even with the doors unlocked. Tonight, as you lie down, give yourself 5 minutes of reckless expansion. Stretch your limbs toward the corners of the bed. Claim the territory. It will feel terrifying at first, but it is a signal to your brain that the room is yours. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to be big, even when you aren't doing anything for anyone else. The goal isn't to never feel small again, but to ensure that small is a choice, not a permanent survival strategy. The cost of survival is, quite often, the self. We pay for our safety in installments of authenticity. Every time you curl into that ball, you are honoring a contract you signed years ago, a contract that promised you protection in exchange for your expansiveness. Carl Jung once remarked, The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But for the wounded soul, the terror isn't just in the acceptance, it's in the exposure. There is an invisible grief in this posture. It is the grief of the unlived life. To maintain the social mask, the version of you that is composed, competent, and perhaps a bit too fine, requires a staggering amount of psychic energy. By the time you reach your bed, you are emotionally bankrupt. You aren't just sleeping, you are hiding the inner truth from the ceiling fan, from the silence, and even from yourself. The core fear here isn't death, it's the fear of being seen in your unfinished state. It's the fear that if you were to lay flat, exposed, vulnerable, open, the world would finally notice the cracks in the armor you've spent decades polishing. We sacrifice the joy of belonging for the safety of hiding. We choose the certainty of the cage over the risk of the sky. And let's be honest for a second, that cage is incredibly lonely, even if the bars are made of Egyptian cotton and a high thread count duvet. It is a heavy realization to wake up to. Let's pause here, because I know how heavy this feels. It's okay to take a breath. We are looking at a map of your internal fortress, and the air is a bit thin up here. It is a profound mistake to mistake a survival strategy for a personality trait. You are not naturally guarded, you are strategically protected. When the fetal mindset follows you out of the bedroom and into the boardroom or the living room, it manifests in ways that feel like just who I am, but are actually how I survived. The hyper-competent shield. In the workplace, you might become the person who over-prepares for every meeting, not out of ambition, but out of a desperate need to be beyond reproach. If you are perfect, you are unassailable. You are curled up intellectually. Sound familiar? The emotional exit strategy. In romantic relationships, you might find yourself practicing reactive avoidance. At the first sign of a partner truly seeing your mess, you subconsciously begin to withdraw, folding inward before they have a chance to unfold you. The social hangover. You likely experience a crushing exhaustion after social events. This isn't just introversion, it's the fatigue of impression management. You have spent 4 hours meticulously controlling the narrative of you, and your nervous system is screaming for the fetal position. Decision paralysis as camouflage. You might struggle with simple choices because being wrong feels like being hunted. To make a mistake is to be exposed, and exposure is the one thing your biology cannot tolerate. The somatic armor. Even when sitting in a chair, you might notice your shoulders are hiked up to your ears and your core is tight. Your body is perpetually ready for a blow that never comes. Painful, isn't it? The smallness habit. You may find yourself literally taking up less physical space in rooms, crossing your arms or tucking your feet under you on the couch, a physical echo of that midnight retreat. I'll admit, seeing myself in these patterns was a bitter pill to swallow. It feels like being caught in a lie you didn't know you were telling. But there is a vital distinction between active choice and reactive avoidance. Choosing to be private is a philosophy. Being unable to be open is a reflex. The first step of unlearning isn't to force yourself to sleep flat on your back like a soldier. That would be another form of performance. The first step is simply witnessing. It's looking at your curled up self at 2 a.m. and saying, I see you. I know why you're doing this. You're trying to keep us safe. Instead of gaslighting yourself by saying you're just a side sleeper, acknowledge the pattern. When you stop judging the fortress, the doors might finally start to feel less heavy. So, where does that leave us? Standing at the edge of the mattress, looking at the person we've become, and wondering if we'll ever feel safe enough to simply sprawl. Healing in this context isn't about forcing your body into a different shape. It isn't a military drill where you command your limbs to stay straight. Real resolution is much quieter. It begins with shadow work, the act of turning toward that curled up, small version of yourself and realizing they aren't your enemy. They are your oldest, most loyal protector. Practical healing often looks like inner child reparenting. It's the late-night internal dialogue where you, the adult who survived, speak to the child who felt they had to hide. It's saying, "I've got the watch now. You can unclench. You don't have to hold the perimeter tonight." It's about choosing softness over the rigidity of survival. Maybe it starts with a conscious exhale, letting the shoulders drop just half an inch, or allowing one hand to move away from the chest. We are not fixing a broken machine. We are learning to be kind to a wounded heart. And I'll be honest with you, as someone who writes these words and thinks these thoughts, I am still practicing this every single night. I am a fellow traveler in this. Some days the world feels like a storm, and the fetal position is the only umbrella I have. And that's okay. Recovery is not a straight line. It is a slow, spiraling dance toward the center. A crucial part of this thaw is what psychologists call intrinsic identity orientation. This is the profound soul-level shift where you begin to believe that your true self exists independent of your social mask. You are not your productivity. You are not your social presence. You are not the person who never makes a mistake. Your worth is intrinsic. It is woven into your very breath. When you truly anchor yourself in this, the need to hide begins to lose its grip. You realize that even if you are seen, even if you are judged, the core of who you are remains untouched and untouchable. We must embrace the idea that meaning doesn't need a medium. Just because you aren't performing your depth for the world doesn't mean it isn't there. Your connections, your memories, and your capacity for love don't require external symbols or proof to be valid. You don't need to stand tall for your soul to be giant. You can be curled into the smallest seed, and the entire universe of your internal life remains vivid, permanent, and sacred. As we move toward the end of our time together, I want you to take a moment, just one. Feel the weight of your body against whatever is supporting you. Unclench your jaw. Soften the space between your eyebrows. Exhale, and let the air carry away just a little bit of that hypervigilance. The great poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "Be patient toward all that is unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue." Your fetal position is one of those locked rooms. You don't have to break the door down. You just have to sit outside it with a little more compassion than you did yesterday. Because in the end, we must remember, true depth isn't etched on the surface for the world to see. It is carried in quiet safety within the silence of the soul.